I'm live. Hi, everybody. It's Janet Hickox with Living Astrology. It is great to see everybody over here in YouTube land as opposed to Facebook land today. It is a little different for me to be over here consciously. Remember, about 3 weeks ago, I did this sort of as an unconscious thing. I had to do it because Facebook wouldn't let me in. So my experience this morning was a little bit more filled with trepidation as I wasn't sure how to set it up, how to get into it. Hopefully you are all seeing me live now, and it'll be exciting to see how this plays out over the course of the next few months of my new experience. Now, when I went live before, I was able to see all kinds of comments and so forth. So if you're out there listening to me already this morning, would you please do a couple of comments so I can see where that's going to show up in my experience and be able to interact with everybody. So maybe if I touch that, I'm going to see that. Oh, I got to hold, please. Got to mute that. Now I see it. Very good. Asa, good morning. And Monique, good morning. Marissa, good morning. Awesome to see you all out there. And Terry, my wonderful husband, I know you're out there too. So maybe you could figure out how to chat so I know that I'm being received by everybody. Okay. All right. All right. I'm just looking great. So let's talk about what is going on. How did everybody do last night with the new moon? My phone alerted me at the moment that the moon became new, but it was so late in the evening. I mean, well, 7:27, it's not that late in the evening, but it's not the time of day where you could really experience the effect of something new, or get that push to go do something fun and exciting. It was like more getting ready to wind down my day kind of feeling. But then this morning, as I woke up, I thought, wow, today's a new day. Not only is it the energy of the new moon, but I am moving into a new way of broadcasting, which seemed fun to me. And also then there was a different body in the heavens for us to talk about today, and that is Ceres, which I've been meaning to do a series, Series, on the goddess planets, and somehow that just hasn't come together. But today is a good day to actually talk about one of them, the goddess Ceres. And she is considered a dwarf planet. And we're going to talk about her today because she's moving out of the sign of Aries, where she's been for a while. I'm sorry, out of the sign of Aquarius, where she's been for a while, and now into the sign of Pisces. So got too used to talking about Aries energy there for a while. So let's start with where we are today. Good morning, Allison. And Monique says, definitely new beginnings, always welcomed. I'm so glad that you guys are chatting, so I actually see that. And I really, really appreciate those of you who have made the transition over here to YouTube. It's interesting to me because I wasn't the only one experiencing problems over at Facebook. And I know Facebook was going through issues themselves with changes, but they've become very much censors of what it is that you're going to get to see or hear. And if there are certain keywords that they don't like, then they censor you or they throttle down your exposure. And certainly when you're talking about certain subjects, astrology may be one of them. That might be one of those subjects that they want to censor or they want to throttle. So, and I get it. It's their platform. They're free to do whatever they want. But I'm over here now. So hopefully we don't have that same issue over here. So today the moon is still in Taurus. Yes, we have that energy of manifesting, the master manifestors, right? They're the sign that can really get things done when they put their very formidable energy into it. If they put their backs into it, let's say, they can really get things done. Today, the moon finds itself still in a conjunction, an actually tighter conjunction to the planet Uranus than it was yesterday at the new moon, but soon to move off from that and into a square, a challenge to the planet Mars. So we have a day where we can expect the unusual or the unique, or the exciting or the surprises, right? The things that we don't expect, suddenly we expect. And that is kind of the way to handle the day in terms of the energies that are coming in at us. It's also a day for action, as the square to Mars presents us with maybe obstacles that we need to overcome to get to where we want to go. So it's a day for us to take purposeful action. And why do I say purposeful action? Because the moon, actually in the sign of Taurus, prefers to have that progressive, stepwise plan in place. It's almost like you can just tick off the boxes and say, this is done, this is done, this is done. And that's the preferred energy then that the moon is in today. And with Mars, Mars actually kind of favors that kind of action as well. He would much more prefer to have an action plan to move forward with than to just have that free floating action. So we're taking purposeful action today. We're following a plan perhaps, or if we're not following a plan, maybe it's a good day to put one in place. And expect the unusual or the different today. Things probably aren't going to be able to be put in a box or kept, in any one particular sense. We're going to probably be experiencing things widely, and it can have an air of excitement to it, right? I feel it. I bet you guys do too. Mimi, good morning. Marissa says, I had problems sleeping. Then I didn't sleep for very long. My son had a nightmare and he's having a challenging morning with homeschooling. So far, we aren't loving this new moon. Oh, it's okay. These obstacles are here for us to learn from, right? To find out where it is that we're holding on to attachments, where it is that we expect things to happen in a certain way. And then we have that connection to Uranus that does upset things, right? It turns them upside down for us to shake loose, right? So we're not going to get stuck in a rut, or we're not going to get stuck in that same old plodding way of doing things. We're kind of getting pushed out of our comfort zones. Amy Moore, good morning. Asa says, did a new moon ritual and got the urge to cook afterward. Was up until 2 a.m. Oh my gosh, and here you are up already with us. Good morning, Terry. Great to see you out there. And I think I've got the comments down cold here. I love it. Let me just say good morning and see if I can actually. I do. I can also do comments. I like it. Okay. So now today, let's move over and talk about a subject that we don't often get to talk about, and that is about one of the goddess planets. Ceres is the goddess of food. And so it's funny that a couple of you are talking about food or cooking or, being creative in the middle of the night, or not having or having issues sleeping, because I think that is just the beginning of what might be possible for all of us over the next few weeks. As Ceres, who rules food and agriculture, she rules the female cycle. So, and when I say that, it's not just the menstrual cycle, but the cycle of time, the bigger cycles of time, from maiden, mother, and crone energy. She rules the nurturing part or aspect of being a mother, and the separation anxiety that comes when we separate from that role into the role of the crone. She represents grief and loss in our parent-child relationships. And she is she's the Roman goddess. She's named for the Roman goddess, but she's also Demeter, who was the Greek goddess. And if you remember Demeter and Persephone, her daughter, this was the story of her daughter being abducted by Hades in the underworld, or Pluto, and drug out of her world, the earth world, and into the underworld. And she was kidnapped, really, literally, in that respect. And Demeter, or Ceres, was so stricken with grief that she ceased being productive, and the earth dried up, shriveled up, died. Things didn't, when it was spring, things didn't come to, the crops didn't grow and plants didn't grow. The earth did not go through her process of greening. And so the gods in the heaven were very upset by this, right? They were like, we can't let this happen. So they struck a deal with Hades, or Pluto, and Demeter to allow Persephone, her daughter, to live 6 months on the level of the earth, and then the other 6 months in the underworld with Hades. And so we get this idea of natural cycles. The earth's natural cycles, right? Of spring renewal, summer's fullness, fall's harvesting, and winter's death and quiet or melancholy or solitude, leading again to Earth's renewal, and on and on. So we have these bigger cycles of time that the goddess Ceres evokes for us. Now, let's talk about the fact that she's going to be moving into a sign that I think has been the pot stirrer for all of the COVID-19 coronavirus economic issues that we've been experiencing over time. And now we get to where we're hearing in the news, the top news story that I saw yesterday was out of the, pandemic comes famine. And if we're going to talk famine, we're going to talk about Ceres, because she would be the goddess that creates that barrenness, that inability for us to feed the masses on the planet. And I mean, seriously, there was another article this morning, even in the news feed, about the same issue, about the countries who were already on the edge with being able to feed their people, countries that have a lot of refugees, Syria and some of the African nations, and they already have trouble feeding their people. And now what's going to happen with this, virus and the economic impact and the, I don't know. I just don't know. But I thought it was so interesting that those news stories start to pop up at the very moment that Ceres is changing signs. And the sign she's changing into Pisces. We're familiar with Pisces energy because Neptune has been sitting here. So at some point, Ceres will come into contact with the planet Neptune, and they will be striking up their conversation here about several different things. So let's break down what some of the things are that we might experience during this time. First and foremost, Ceres in Pisces brings us to this cleansing and purifying energy. Now, we could purify in many different ways. We can purify by fire. We can detoxify. We can use water as a detoxifying agent. And likely in Pisces, that is exactly the way it's going to go. It's going to be through the detoxification, through water, and through looking at the inner workings of our bodies and what we are actually ingesting, taking in. So we may be in the process of cleansing and purifying our bodies, right, through of toxins. We might be detoxifying our minds from the old beliefs and patterns, stinking thinking. I love to use that phrase. Those patterns that we get, into our thoughts, right, where we're consistently thinking the same things in the same way. Our negative responses more than our positive responses is what I'm speaking of now. Closed-mindedness, right? Where we can't see. We've got the tunnel vision going, where we can't see out here what else there might be to what's going on, or to, what's causing us to need to be cleansed or purified. Our environment, right? Also the environment. Out with the old, in with the new, right? It's time to open the windows in the northern hemisphere, get the fresh air coming in, let out the old winter stuffy air, and to take a look at what's in your environment that has been maybe cluttering up over the winter, and what can we use to clean that out, right? Maybe cleaning out cupboards, getting ready to shift over into different foods and so forth that we can eat during the spring and summer. Now, for those of you under the equator, you guys are moving into your winter or your fall and in winter. And so you're coming inward while the northern hemisphere is going outward. But there's still then, what can you release yourself from, that you've gathered over your summer? And what can you bring into harvest, I guess, is the way you would look at it. For those of you south of the equator, for us north of the equator, what can we open up ourselves to, right? What new things can we bring in? And this will be a time for us to gain clarity on our true desires. In other words, it's, what do you really want? What do you want to nurture? What do you want to keep with you? What's worthwhile? What's worthwhile to keep? What's worth holding on to or going back to? I had an interesting little moment this morning. I had once done a radio show on Blog Talk Radio on Ceres. And it was very in-depth. And I was looking for that paperwork, that because I keep all of the things I do. I keep just about every morning show I've done. I keep anything where I've got a lot of lesson type information in it, I keep. So I was looking back through my files to see if I could find that show that I did. And I suspect it's in one of my little books, my booklets that I use, one of these things. And I'll have to go back and find it, because I knew that at one time I had really gone through Ceres. And it made me think about going back to when I did those radio shows on Blog Talk rather than live video. They were quite in depth, right? And it was interesting because because you couldn't see me, and because I couldn't share screens, I became very adept at getting into the details of things. So I was thinking about that, going back to either broadcasting live on radio or incorporating somehow the depth of that particular experience into live video. And it's not that I don't go into depth with what I do now, but I just found it to be something to think about, going back to something that used to work for you in the past, something that you really loved doing in the past. So that's a theme that we're going to see during this period of time with Ceres in the sign of Pisces. Then we also have this element of emotional creativity coming up. And when we're talking about Pisces energy, remember it's the sign of the two fishes, one swimming in the conscious mind, the other one swimming in the unconscious. So what it brought up to me was that boom and bust cycle that we go through in our own personal experience, where we might be up and we're very creative and we're excited and we're having a great time, followed by that time where we go into the emotional quiet space. In human design, we call it the plateau, where we become melancholic maybe, or we require more quiet and solitude. And so we have this cycle that we might be going through in our personal lives, alternating between that emotional high, where we feel very creative and productive, followed by that emotional low, the low part of the wave, where we are indeed needing more sleep, perhaps, or escaping into a quiet place, that we can interpret also as something that is a difficult energy, depression even, or sadness, or that melancholy because maybe I'm not doing something right or nothing's going my way, and that kind of thing. And when we look at where Ceres is initially in your human design, what we see is that she starts out at the gate 30, which is the very lowest gate on the far right side of your chart at the emotional center. And the emotional center here, the gate 30, ramps up the energy on the planet, in your chart, in all of our experiences, because desire is so thick, right? And the expectation of getting what we desire is so profound on the planet that it creates and overrides even some of the other energies on the chart. So initially we have that, right? That very powerful need or want or desire to get ahead, to survive, to do something, to be something. And then after about just a very short few days of her experience in Pisces, she'll move into the gate 55, which is also on the emotional center, but is the energy of abundance, and abundance by birthright, not abundance by what you do. So in the emotional center, which is an energy wave, but it isn't the sacral center about doing, right? In the sacral center, every energy there is about doing something. On the emotional center, where the gate 55 is, where Ceres, the planet, will be sitting for a while, will be about attracting abundance, right? It'll be about being in the flow of abundance. It will be about our birthright as co-creators, as opposed to our having to go out, go to work, do the things that we think we have to do in order to bring in abundance into our lives. So for a while then, it's changing our focus on how abundance plays out in our lives. And when we look deeper then at what Ceres and Pisces will bring us, we may find ourselves in a more deep connection to the planet, to nature, to the need to escape into our imaginations. I'm going to pause here for just a moment and go make my way back to YouTube. There we go. So I can see what comments look like. Asa, Terry awoke at 3 a.m. hungry. You drank a protein drink at 3 a.m.? Obviously, I didn't know that. I fell asleep and stayed asleep all night. Good morning, Kamal. I'm glad that you found us over here. And Nicole Markham, good morning. She says, I can finally watch you live at work. That's awesome. And Mimi says, good morning, Kamal. She's talking. I love it. Everybody can talk to one another this way, just like on Facebook. But hopefully we don't have some of the issues that we had before. So how are we all doing with this idea of Ceres and Pisces energy? Is there anything that you need me to clarify for you, or anything that you have questions about before I dig in more? If so, go ahead and type that in here so that I can get that information out to everybody. And I wonder, is there a lag? I see myself here in the video, and it feels to me like it's lagging behind what I said just a few minutes ago. So I'm going to hold for just a second and see if anybody has questions. And in the meantime, also maybe you want to share what your experiences were of the new moon. And oh gosh, okay. So Deb Johnson, if you're listening, I can't answer that question so easily in the broadcast here, but after I'm done this morning, I'll try to email you back. I'm not sure if that's true. She says she needs to create it. It's telling her to create a YouTube channel in order to join chat. I don't know that that's true. Is there anybody out there that's listening to me this morning that is chatting but doesn't have their own YouTube channel? If so, let me know, because that would be helpful for Deb Johnson, who's trying to get in. Asa, does it matter where Ceres is in the natal chart? You bet you it does. Today, I didn't want to deal necessarily with Ceres in the natal chart, but it does. And she is where you would find the need in you to be nurtured or to nurture. So whatever sign she's in, whatever house she is in, it is going to be the place in your chart where you're sort of the caretaker, where you feel responsible for other people, where you want to mother or be mothered. So it would be interesting at some point for us to take a look at that, to look deeper. Today, I just really wanted to deal with her move into Pisces. Okay, Monique Alexander is saying she does not have a channel, and she's chatting with us this morning, Deb. So I don't know. We'll have to maybe dig a little bit, and I'll see if I can't help you find answers to that question. Marissa says, I don't have a channel, but I have an account. Deb, maybe you need to sign into your Google account. Maybe that would help, because YouTube is now owned by Google. So maybe Marissa and Monique are signed into their Google accounts, and that's why they can do this. Yep, that's what Amy just said. Okay, good. Thanks, Amy. If you have a Gmail address, email address, it should be fine. Yep, you can log in with your Gmail account. So try that then, Deb, and then you can chat. Angela K, same here, no channel, but have a Gmail. Awesome. And Asa, just a Gmail account. Okay, perfect. Thank you guys. I love it. You guys all know what to do here. So Deb Johnson, if you don't have a Google account or a Gmail account, that is what you'll have to do. Log into that. I know that's true because I also have to log into my Gmail account to come live on YouTube. So there you have that. Okay, so great questions about Ceres. So maybe we will go ahead and go on to in subsequent videos to talk more about Ceres and what she means in your personal charts. Right now, I want you to look and find where Pisces is in your chart. And guess what? I can still share my charts. Oh my gosh, I forgot all about this. So let me get to where the chart of the day is, and I can at least show you where Pisces is, what she looks like. And I call it a she, but it could be, you know, it's definitely feels more feminine. Let's bring the chart up a little bit. So right now, here's the sign of Pisces. It almost looks like a backwards parentheses, you know, connected by a bar. It's like the opposite sort of Gemini in the way it looks. So if you find Pisces in your chart right now, this is the planet Ceres. And if this morning, this chart was drawn up at 6 oh, I've got it set for Lynn Haven, Florida. So it was 8:25 a.m. in Florida at the time I drew up the chart. But the actual energy of the chart at that point, she hadn't moved over to Pisces. She was in the very last degree, last few minutes of Aquarius. But now, trust me when I say she has moved over into Pisces and will begin the move through this sign. And you see, we still have Neptune here at the 20th degree. It'll be a while before she connects to Neptune. But for the short time now, we're bringing up rather a lot of feminine energy in the sign of Pisces. So we're going to find that there's a lot more need for us to go into the void. Remember, we talk about the divine feminine and the divine masculine, and the divine feminine is in the dark. It's the night. It is the dark. It is the void. It is the space of no thing and everything, right? It is in the dark. The masculine energy is ruled by the sun, and it is in the light. So we have light and dark held in a balance, in check. And it is the fear of the dark, i.e., the fear of the feminine, that caused such a terrible reaction from the divine masculine back in the days of the witch hunts and so forth, right? In their fear of the power of the dark, right? So we get all of these iconic sort of demons and this idea of a devil and so forth related to the divine feminine. That's a whole nother talk we could get on one day. So here we are all at this point in time going into the womb, right? That's what this energy is going to bring us to, going into the womb, where we may find that we need more sleep or that we have disrupted sleep, where we may feel like we want to escape into our imagination or into our dream worlds or into our art or into our reading or into watching television shows one after another. That's kind of the escape energy that we have. And with Pisces energy, there's that time that we're going to spend in the light, right? In the consciousness where we're expressing the artistic, where we're expressing the imagination. But then there's the other time where we're going to go into that dark place, where we're going to go into that quiet, where imagination leads to the birth of new ideas, right? So we have to have both. So we'll need that time of sleep and quiet solitude to be able to incubate new ideas and new ways of being. And then it will be followed by the time of expressing that in the outer world, followed again by that more inner dynamic. And it really reminds me of the cycles that of the feminine, right? The menstrual cycles where they weren't honored in our more modern times, where those were times where the women who were bleeding moved themselves away from the mainstream so they could go internal, so they could work through and integrate and have that solitude, that time to rebuild and to re-energize themselves, followed by the time after that Menses flow, where they were again part of society and out in the world and expressing maybe the new that was brought to them in that quiet time. So we're expressing all of that during this time of Ceres being in the sign of Pisces. It'll be a great time for us to connect more fully with nature, especially water, especially the ocean water and or the rivers, water that's moving. Not so much, I mean, lakes and streams are fine too, but if you can get next to a moving body of water, it can be very, very strengthening for you, connecting to that nature. And this is going to be a time of body, mind, and soul sensitivity. So watch for the things that we do that upset our balance in our bodies. For example, overgiving or overdoing. I'm going to close that out for a moment there. Where we become caught up again in the victim, savior, martyr energy that is like so last century, but the vestiges of it are still here. And as transits pop through the sign of Pisces, it brings that back up to the surface for us to work through or to release and let go. So this is a time then, Ceres will be bringing us that releasing energy. This will be a time for you to make sure you have unstructured time where everything's not on a schedule. Pisces doesn't do good on a schedule. This is about being unstructured, about having the freedom of movement to be able to go with the flow, water flow, And that might mean that your day isn't going to look, I mean, I think all of our days right now don't look the same as they did a few months ago in the hustle bustle world. We're now moving back into the more quiet solitude, valuing our unstructured time as well as the structured time. But we have to be able to give ourselves more of that fluidness, right? That flow. There are going to be quite a few of you who likely will have some kind of digestive disruption during this period of time as well, because we are very sensitive. We have heightened sensitivities. We are in the need of detoxifying our bodies, our minds, our souls, etc. Then that means that anything that you put into your mouth, anything that you put into your body, water or food or anything that you drink or anything that you eat, anything that you put on your skin even is going to be possibly making you more sensitive. You might notice food allergies more distinctly during this period of time. You may find that you're more sensitive to things that you used to be able to eat that you can't eat now. And that's also a process of this detoxification. So it would behoove us then to be aware of what it is that we're putting in our mouths and into our bodies or on our bodies over these next several months while Ceres is in the sign of Pisces. Now, there is also a connection with the goddess Ceres to abundance. When you look at Ceres in different statues or different paintings or works of art, you often see her with a wheat sheaf, with a cornucopia, with lots of different fruits, or she seems to exude a sort of abundant nature, right? That's usually the picture we see of her. And so we have to have a conversation then around money and abundance. And with Pisces energy here, it would be about plugging the leaks that you have in your abundant life. And when I say that, it's things like, what are you spending your money on that's not necessary? Are you spending too much money on something versus what you could get something for? I had an interesting experience the other day with insurance, auto insurance, where it seems like all the major companies out there are reducing rates or giving people credit for not having used their cars as much. But my insurance company isn't doing that, right? Nope. In fact, I get a rate increase from them. And I'm pissed off when I get this because I just went through, like 3 months ago, a process of releasing different insurances that I had, kind of trying to plug the leaks in what I was spending on my insurance. And here it is. They raised my rates. I mean, I was just irritated by that. So I started looking around. So this might be a great time for us to really look at what is it that we really value? Are you getting the best bang for your buck? And if not, then it's time to do something about it, right? Because it's up to us to plug those leaks. The universe isn't necessarily going to plug the leaks. The universe is just hearing you say, I want flow, I want more, but then are you paying too much? That's a great thing for us to look at. Are you maybe being buried in bills? And is there something you can do about that? I had a moment the other day of having to look at that myself, and specifically toward my business, because frankly, business is way low. And I had to look at that. All the expenses, the expenses never change. That doesn't change, but the incoming business, the money coming in has drastically dropped. And what does that mean for me? How long can I be sustainable in doing what I do? So these are conversations, not just me. Everybody seems to be having to do this. Every self-employed person, every person who's maybe lost their job and has to look at their family budgets, people who maybe had their hours cut. We're all having this conversation now. And I guess it's an invitation for us to not go into fear around this, but to look with an eye to sustainability. What can I keep? How can we stay in the flow? So how can I continue doing what I'm doing, but maybe with not so many leaks where the money or the flow is moving through without my knowledge, right? That's a thing that happens a lot to us, right? Things just kind of flowing through those cracks. Now, is there enough value in what you're purchasing? Are you really spending on what's important to you, or are you just spending because you need to fill the holes, right? The hole, the void. That's a good question too, right? All of us right now feeling a little bit, on the edge, feeling a little bit disrupted. And maybe one way that we fill that void is we shop, and we're spending money that maybe we shouldn't be spending, etc. Again, this isn't about going into fear, because this is the goddess of abundance, but she recognizes those boom and bust cycles. So the best way to prepare for the bust is to squirrel some away during the boom, right? Or to make sure that you have a sustainable platform for those inevitable bust times, which we are definitely busting right now, right? So during the bust time, then we've tightened up or constricted up a little, limited maybe feeling, but that doesn't mean that abundance has cut off. It just means these are natural cycles, right? She spent 6 months on the earth, and it was renewal and rebirth and bringing things into fullness. And then the other 6 months were the harvest and the quiet, preparing for the next period of renewal. So that's also what we're dealing with during this period of time. Booms and bust. Boom and bust. And it's not just about the money, of course. It can be in all kinds of things. Business, it can be in your relationships, in agriculture, food, etc. So let me go back over what Ceres rules in a chart. She rules food, agriculture. And when we're talking about food, it is not just about anything that you put in your mouth. It's about the wholeness, the goodness of what it is that the food is bringing to you. When she is concerned with agriculture, it's about our techniques that we use to grow, and what pesticides are being put in the soils, and what are we growing organic foods? Are we growing GMOs? What are we doing here? And trying to purify that in our worlds. She represents the feminine, the female life cycle, family, time cycles, right? The right and perfect timing of things. Synchronicities even are a part of her experience. It is about motherhood, parent and child relationships. Grief and loss are also a part of the experience. And I think that we can see plainly also in our world right now. All right, I'm going to head back over to YouTube to see if I can answer questions. Okay, so I don't have, Marissa says, I don't have Pisces in my chart, just on the ring outside. How do I? Okay, hold on, Marissa. You do too have Pisces in your chart. You can't not have one. So if you have one that's transiting, then if you go to the inner wheel, that's where it is by birth. And maybe without seeing your chart, I don't know exactly what you have, but you need to find, let me go back and share my screen again. Not there. This one. There we go. I'm going to share the screen so you can again see the sign of Pisces. This is likely what your chart looks like, Marissa, where all of these planets are on the inner wheel and the sign of Pisces is right here. And on the outer ring in your chart, perhaps you have a transit chart, you might have green symbols out here that represent where the planets are as of the date of the chart that you're looking at. So I don't do that here because the transits would be the same as the birth chart here, because I'm looking at it as a day, right? Today's the day. So find the sign of Pisces. What's on the inner ring is what it is doing for your birth. And on the outer ring is where Ceres is, or any planets are at the moment that chart was drawn up. So if this was a birth chart of someone born today, then we'd see Ceres at the 29th degree, 55 minutes of Aquarius. We would find Neptune in Pisces. And somebody now, we'd probably find that their Ceres was in the sign of Pisces. If you are looking at a transit chart, likely you're going to see this symbol on the outer wheel. And if you have one of the older, although I'm pretty sure I've used Ceres for a long time, but you may have an older astrology chart where this symbol isn't in it. Maybe that's where the problem is. But find this symbol. She looks like a question mark with a cross underneath it. And Pisces, everybody has all 12 signs in their chart somewhere, right? Somewhere. And I'm trying to remember, Marissa, I think you have a Scorpio rising, perhaps? And if so, then Scorpio Go opposite, you'll find Taurus, opposite on the descendant, and then go back one sign and you'll find Pisces. So if that helps you orient a little bit to where that is. All right. And if not, just look for this symbol. Okay, let me go back again to see if I can answer more questions. I need to do that instead of being connected to my old singing channel. My name is really bothering me. What? Okay. Change is good though. Allison D, Ceres is in my 7th house, and that's how I know it impacts me. Thanks for the reminder. I must have missed something there in that conversation. Deborah Johnson, you found us. Yay. Thank you, Terry. Good morning, beautiful people, she says. I love it. Okay, so Deborah says, live food, when we eat them, make us feel alive. You know, it also occurs to me during this period of time that we may find ourselves wanting to move away from being the carnivorous to the more vegetarian. I'm not saying that we need to let go of meat. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that we may find that what supports our body more during this next period of time is more of the plant level of food, the live food that we can eat. So nuts and seeds and berries and vegetables and, beans and those kinds of things that are derived from plant-based foods. So, and maybe all you really need to do is add even a plant-based drink, like a green smoothie to your diet to make sure you're getting enough of those greens. But I suspect that over this period of time, it may be the meat component of our diets that creates more problems. So maybe we want to get our protein through something different, maybe eggs or lentils, or I don't even remember from high school chemistry or college chemistry what it is that has protein in it. But there are other sources of protein than having to eat meat. So if you're finding that you're, finding symptoms of food allergies, check first with meat and how that's playing out in your body. Pisces is the 6th and 7th for you. So then if Pisces starts in your 6th house, then that is likely where you're going to find the planet Ceres, because she's going to be at 0 degrees or so of Pisces right now, the very beginning of the sign. And that would be the 6th house of work, service, and health. So a new physical or health regimen perhaps for you in the offing. Perhaps a really good look at your diet and what supports you and what doesn't support you. Maybe you're just the opposite, right? Maybe you've been eating a lot of plant food or a lot of, vegetables, and there's another component that you need to add to your diet. Maybe it is more protein, that type of thing. So that would be where, at least initially, Amy, she is for you. Marissa has an Aries rising, so go backwards one sign, go back to the 12th house. Likely Pisces sits on your 12th house then, Marissa, and that would be maybe even the 11th house or the 12th house where your Ceres is by transit right now. And that might be looking at the new way that you interact in a community, looking at new friends, or how do I network with people. It may be even a look at what your dreams are, right? What is your dream, your hopes, and your aspirations? What that may be a new thing for you to look at during this period of time. And Asa, I will look that up for you because I'm really not sure how long Ceres lasts in a sign. Monique says, sadly, sugar is a part of my WFH day. I'm sorry, I don't know what that acronym is. WFH. I don't know what that is, but maybe letting go of some sugar. CR Bowles 56 says, I just found you. Good morning, everybody. We're glad to see you. 7th house for you. So now that takes on a nurturing quality in your marriage or your business partnerships or your closest relationships. It might even be the reflection that you see of yourself in the mirror of your relationships, and how can you become more nurturing to yourself and to others by looking at that reflection. Deborah Johnson, mine is in the 8th and the 9th house. So literally beginning in the 8th house, because that's where Ceres would be right now. If it's the 0 degrees, she's going to be at the earliest point of that house. And the 8th house is the house of transformation, sex, death, rebirth. It is all about that whole idea of how we go through life in needing to regenerate, right? So what needs regenerating for you in order to be more abundant, to be more fertile, let's say? What might you need to let go of and open yourself up to the new? And Marissa got it. Sue McCarthy. Oh, hi, Sue. I get it now. And Asa, work from home. Well, we have that, right? There's that. So we're all working from home, sort of. I'm just going to go backwards here and see if I see anything else that I might have missed. Okay, I think I've got everything. Good, 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 good. Okay, so now lastly today, let's talk about the Pleiadian-Earth energy, because as usual, I find it quite supportive to what it is that we are chatting about this morning. And that is that today's day is the 6 enlightening. And enlightening is the very last of the Earth signs. It was a how in the Mayan calendar, the very last sign, the sign of kings, right? The sign of enlightenment. The 6 is the universal number or the universal energy of the day, which is about flow. So today is a day, a time for developing, refining, improving oneself and the things that you are engaged with in your life. It is a great day for movement, for setting yourself free to just go with the flow, flowing over obstacles, around obstacles, under them, just like water. It's a very water sort of setup where we think of 6, we should think about water and how water so easily breaks its banks of a river if it so chooses, or it stays in the banks of the river if it so chooses. Water can cut around things, it can cut under things, it can go over things. So the idea today, the concept is this idea of flow. And the secret to flow is moving through every experience without trying to change it, without wishing it was something different or making it something other than what it is. Just go through the experience, right? I was watching people protesting here in this state. I'm sure it's happening everywhere, protesting against the stay-at-home orders. And I thought, if you would just relax and go with the flow and stop fueling fear and worry in your life, you might find that this would be a great time for catching up on your sleep, for catching up some rest, for getting some other things done in your life while we're waiting. Go with the flow. If the flow is taking you home and doing things around home, go with that flow. Don't worry about what comes next because it isn't here yet. And wishing something were different, protesting against something to make it different is not being in the flow. So today reminds us to be in that flow. It doesn't mean we have to like it, but it does mean that the more we resist it, the more we get angry inside or upset inside, rather than just being able to be okay with what's happening in the moment, because it's really sort of out of your control. That's the other part of this. Enlightening energy. Enlightening energy sees multiple perspectives at the same time, which uplifts us as humans. So when we see something unveiled in front of us or a drama unfolding in front of us, if we can see it from many different sides and many different perspectives, then we can stay out of the fray. We stay above the fray and we're just viewing it, right? We're just observing it. And the place of wisdom comes from that observation. Here we get an opportunity to see it from God's perspective or God's point of view, if you will, source's point of view. We're taking a cosmic look at everything that's going on and not our very limited eye view of what's going on. We're almost being asked to step back, step up, and look in and be okay with whatever it is that we see and however it is things are unfolding. We're here today to transcend limitations, right? To transcend that limited perspective, to share, to combine our different viewpoints, to create new pathways, to become more holistic, and to release polarization, right? Today's a day through idealism, through looking at things in a new way, to release our divisive and polarized world or thoughts, right? It can't exist in our outer world if we don't resonate with it ourselves on the inside on some level. And even if it did exist, it wouldn't bother you at all because you would know that's not my reality, right? So looking at a different reality, rising above, going with the flow. So I find today acts very much like the energy of Ceres in Pisces, where it's all about the flow, but the flow of nurturing in this case, and supporting that nurturing energy. Um, Allison, great question. I have Chiron, Eris, and Ceres in one house. How do they play together? That's an interesting combination to have together, right? Because literally, at the time that you were born, I'm trying to think about how old you are because you just had your Chiron return. So you must be around 50 or 51, maybe. I know your birthday's in December. Just don't remember the year, 68 or 69, maybe 70. And so you're having your Chiron return. And next to your Chiron, of course, was Eris, the goddess of discord. She upsets everything, right? She really causes us to turn the world upside down and look at it differently. But Ceres is soothing. Ceres is more nurturing. And if they're all in one house, it can be a house of a lot of disruption, a lot of need for healing, and then a lot of ability to nurture yourself or others through the process of the wound that you're experiencing. So, and I don't remember, Allison, what house that is. Do you know? 1970. I knew it was somewhere around there. December 14th. I know that. That's your birth date. And it's amazing how many people's birth dates I actually do remember at times. So, Allison, I just don't remember the way your chart is set up. So if you know the house, then maybe we can look at that a little bit deeper. So Marissa says, I have been resting to reset my adrenals. It was a struggle because it seemed like I should be doing something to take advantage of the slowdown. Well, what you should be doing to take advantage of the slowdown is to slow down, right? Slow down, sit back, relax, chill, be involved in other things that are of a more relaxing nature, or maybe more artistic or more sedate, right? Don't get in, don't, find yourself in that adrenal rush. Just sit back and relax, whew, right? Allison, 10th house. So this is a career house. This is the how the world sees you house. And how does the world see you? And importantly, that ties in then with your first house about how you see you. So how do you see you? But then also, how does the world see you? And what would be more fitting and nurturing for you to be doing in the outer world that would be more in alignment than with your Chiron and your Eris? What is Eris requesting of you? And she's sort of a disruptor, and she just came through a conjunction. Well, the sun came through a conjunction with her very recently. Things may be turned upside down. In other words, a lot of the work that I think that's going to happen after we go back to our new life after COVID is going to be about how many people are going to be working from home, how we're not necessarily going to be in offices or workplaces anymore, where the home takes over a bit more. And I know that you, I think, work in a law office, and so maybe there's more possibilities for you to be at home. So the virus acting as Eris and disrupting everything could be bringing you to a new way of nurturing what it is that you do, or being nurtured through your work. And grief and loss are all a part of that. I think even that's playing into some of the protests and so forth. Is there's this grief over the fact I can't just go do what I want to do, and that if I wanted to go shopping today, that my choices are more limited. And what is that going to bring for our future? There's a lot of uncertainty, and certainly that for people is upsetting, and doesn't necessarily mean that our world is over. Just our world as we know it is changed, and embracing that change. And it may even be at some point, Allison, that you look at what it is that you're doing in the world and it has no meaning for you anymore. There's that. And what does have more meaning to you now? And how do you change your life to be more in that flow? So I think we're all kind of in that space right now of reevaluating everything. So we have that opportunity here to realign our lives with the more natural world, with the more natural cycles of time, and to let ourselves off the hook from those fake circadian rhythms that we have been all a part of for the last, I don't know, millenniums. So getting back more to the natural world, to the natural ideas of cycles of time. And what is that? How does that support us? Okay. Well, I think that is it for me this morning. Oh, Marissa says, instead I was being, and whatever that meant, it was hard. Of course. Yeah. But it's hard because it's hard because we've been conditioned to the doing part. So to use words from human design, that's the conditioning that we found ourselves in, is the doing. And your value got caught up in what you were doing. And if you weren't doing enough, then you weren't good enough, or that your value was less than others. For example, we've built an entire society based on pay that is higher for people that are doctors or football players or basketball players than for those people that support us through the grocery stores, I mean, haven't we learned that here with the COVID-19? Who are we thanking all the time? The nurses, the firemen, the policemen, the grocery workers, the truck drivers who keep our store supplies chains, keep the supply chain going. And those are some of the most underpaid people on the planet. And isn't that interesting, right? That we find ourselves sort of in this upside down world where right now we can't go to a football game, we can't go to a baseball game, we can't go to a basketball game. And yet those players are still drawing down some multi-million dollars versus these people who are on the front lines who are taking care of us. And what are they being paid? I don't know, minimum wage, maybe, if that, maybe just a little over minimum wage. I suppose nurses are getting paid a little bit more, but still for the value. So everything is changing here about what it is that we're doing with one another, and some of those things that we've taken for granted, that we just accept that, football players should be paid millions of dollars for what they do. I'm not saying that people shouldn't get paid for what they do, but I think there's this perception that we have that certain things that you do are more valuable to us, so we pay you more. When what's really become apparent is that it's the people at the lower end of the rung here that are really holding the value. How missed would they be if we couldn't go to the grocery store? How missed would they be if we didn't have food on the shelves in the grocery stores, right? From the suppliers bringing in the foods, from the farmers who are out there harvesting the food, right? These are people that are at the lowest end of the pay scale. And they're often immigrants that are out there in those fields, planting, seeding, harvesting. So interesting how we've undervalued those very people that support us in eating and living and breathing versus the people who are out there playing games or, making us laugh or what, I don't know. It's kind of crazy. The things we think about right now, right? All right, everybody. So have a wonderful Thursday. Tomorrow being Friday, we'll be here talking about Friday's energies, the weekend's energies. We do have kind of an interesting weekend as Pluto is the first of the outer planets to turn retrograde. And we'll have to see how that's going to play out over the next few months. Also during the weekend, we have the sun coming into a conjunction with Uranus. Explosions, bombs, excitement, craziness, good things, maybe awakening in some way. So we have a crazy weekend to talk about, and we'll do some card readings tomorrow as well. All right, everybody, stay safe, stay sane, stay loving, stay kind, stay generous. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye for now.